Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Clutch Report. First of all, Happy New Year to all of you. Hope you've all survived to the 31st night and we're all back in action now. But we were hoping it's a Happy New Year for all of us. But I think one club in particular has sent shockwaves to the Premier League, and that is Chelsea. I don't know, you want to call it a sacking, they're calling it mutually parting ways. Is it Maresca leaving on his own? But Enzo Maresca is out of Chelsea, and we've got a special guest to talk to us about it. Our boy Chris Triveri, lifelong Chelsea fan. How do we feel, brother?
As I was telling you guys, first of all, thanks for having me, boys. It's good to be on with both of you. Happy New Year to you and everyone. You can see me repping the jersey. As I told you guys, it was the first jersey I bought in like almost a decade, and it seems like the worst year to have bought this jersey. Actually, it's not even 10 years. Actually, the last time I bought a jersey, I don't think I told you the story to you guys, was in uh, the second year that the first year that Nike was with Chelsea, which was 2017. And it was the Chelsea Arsenal game where I went with my dad. I bought a David Luiz jersey because Kante was not available. And Luis got red carded that game, and it was a 0-0 draw. So yeah, so I'm not gonna give everyone a BT to the start of the year. It was a BT for me. Me and Shiv had a good time out on New Year's night. It was a good night for us. I woke up fresh at like 12:31 after a great night out. And what do I see? That finally Enzo Maresca has been sacked. Or sacked. I mean, they've not said sacked, they said parted ways. I think that's the term they're using now for everything. Um, but I think this has been compounding now for like at least a month or two. You can see it in the comments that he's made in some of his interviews over the last few weeks. You can see it in the way that he's setting up the team and the substitutions he's making. And also you can see it in the way that the owners are operating the club now. There's been a lot of disagreements within the club, a lot of disagreements within the board itself and with Maresca and the board. So I think this has definitely been compounding for a very long time. If you see the post that came out where it's not even a picture of Maresca, which is kind of sad. It's a picture of a blue background with the Chelsea logo in the middle saying Chelsea and Maresca parted ways. Do they not want to show a picture of him? I don't get it. But if you look through the comments, it's a few people saying, "Thank God this happened. It's finally happened." Blah blah blah. But I'd say 90% of Chelsea fans, and I hope I can speak for them, are a little shocked by this. This was a man that we didn't have a lot of expectations. Coming into the club, he obviously did such great things with Leicester, and then we knew he was a student of Guardiola, so that's a huge plus in everyone's mind. So didn't have a lot of expectations, and it's been 2 years, and he's actually done quite an incredible job. If you look at his win percentage rate, it's 60%, which is little under Tuchel, little under Conte, which was 63, 65%. So overall, I think he fits the project that the club were trying to achieve, right? Taking young players, taking a team that's not established. Chelsea's obviously established club, but I'm not looking at them as that club that had Lampard and John Terry and Cole. It's a new wave, right? So I thought he was the right man, and I saw enough over the past 1 year to see that he was the right man to do this. So I think I've come on this more of a cathartic experience for me. I need a vent because these, I don't understand how these guys are managing the club anymore. Like, I can go on for a very long time about how this club has been run over the past 2 years and what they've been trying to do. Some things I've agreed with, some things I've not, but this is a decision and something that's going to impact us fans for a very long time. I think till the end of the season, questions are going to be raised about this for sure.
Krish, I'm just gonna step in right there. And obviously, you've spoken about the hierarchy. You've spoken about Maresca out, but I want you to touch on just the hierarchy because
Yeah.
obviously, like clubs like Liverpool, they have a setup which is very straightforward. You have the CEO, and then you have sporting directors doing their job, and then you have the managers who
Yeah.
obviously works with in tangent with the sporting director. But if you could just shed some light on how it works in Chelsea, because I'm guessing it's very different because the ownership model also is completely different to a normal
Yeah.
football club. Also, let me
Yeah.
just quickly share my screen so that it becomes very easier for you to run through it.
Sure.
Let's do it. Okay. Let's go, Akrishi.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, some of these names are slightly different also, and they've changed. So if you look at it, the main company in charge, right, is a company called Blueco. Blueco is a consortium of a company called Clear Lake Capital, of Todd Bowley, and of a guy named Mark Walter. Mark Walter, for people who might know him, he's the chairman of the LA Dodgers and of the LA Lakers. So this is a man who has run franchises, and I'm using the word franchises for people because it's America, right? We in the Premier League or in Europe would never use the term franchise. So they've appointed Todd Bowley as the chairman, right? So he basically takes the main decisions not on a day-to-day basis, but on a holistic strategic level. Then you have Begdar Igdali and Feliciano, who are co-owners of Clear Lake Capital, the other part of the consortium of Blueco. Then under them, you have a board of directors. As you can see, some of the names, Mark Walter, as I said, is part of the Dodgers and the Lakers. And then you do have a CEO and you have a sporting director under them. The CEO, I think now, is a guy named John Gannon or David Bernard. I think one of them is the new CEO that has taken over in the past few months. But more than just the hierarchy, right? It's very different from what we had in Abramovich. Abramovich, whatever you want to say about him, he loved our club and he invested a lot of money in our club when it was not worth as much as it is today, right? And under Abramovich, he had 3, 4 core people who were running the club. Like you had Maria, who I think we all can say is incredibly
Incredible.
insane for the job that she did at the club. And you had people like Bruce Buck, who's the chairman. So it's slightly different now in the sense that you have these new owners are trying to run the club like an American franchise in terms of the way they're trying to recruit players, the way they're trying to manage contracts, the way they're trying to manage the financials, the way you see them tying players down to 7 to 8 year contracts. For those who might not know baseball, Shohei Ohtani, who is the #1 baseball player in the world, is now tied down to a 10-year contract to the
contract, yeah.
Dodgers.
Wow.
But that 10-year contract, the first 5 years, they're only paying him $5 million. And then the next 5 years, they're paying him $50 to $100 million per year. It's a $700 million contract or something like that. So
Wow.
the way he structures the deals with players, with the organizations are very different. He's very smart about it. I think Todd Bowley is somebody who's tried to do good for the club. He's tried to build the club into something new. But Clear Lake Capital as a whole, I think, are really struggling with the intangible assets of a football club, the non-financial assets of a football club, the way you have communities, the way you have core fan groups, the way you have such diehard fans who are going to tell you everything you need to know and everything you don't want to hear, right? So it's different from how you run a franchise in America, and they are struggling, and that's why you see these outrageous transfers that are happening, and a lot of them, I'm pretty sure Chelsea fans are like, who is this player? Why? It's honestly like they've gone into FIFA career mode, scouted the young players, and just are buying every young player that they're finding. It feels that way because it doesn't feel like there's any rhyme or reason, right? I was telling Shiv a few days ago uh, that they passed on Mike Mannion for 20 million because they were only willing to pay 15 million for him because he's 29 years old, but he's like one of the best keepers in the world. But we'll pay 55 million for a young player who's 19 and are willing to pay that 5 million extra. So it's strange times for us as a club, but you always have to try and look at the positives. We have the youngest squad in the league. It's a lot of potential, and you try to see what can be done for the future.
Yeah. Coming back to Enzo leaving, I know
Yeah.
your results in the last month have not been the best. I think you've had 1 win in 6 or 1 win in 7. But prior to that, I think Maresca was manager of the month in November. He's won the
Yeah.
FIFA Club World Cup, won the Conference League. So do you think this all came out from just like the comments he was making in the press, or is it a matter of just results being poor? What do you pin it down to?
Um, as I said, no, it's been compounding for a while, right? So results is obviously the first factor because after winning 3 out of 4 games in November, that were key games, right? Like we won massive games. Who would have thought we would have won 3-0 against Barcelona, right? Which was such a huge result for us. Then we started losing a few games and we drew a few games. The comments that he made were, I think, a culmination of him for all the emotions he was having for a while. It was more to do with internal affairs, like the medical team and the board and the medical team, because he had a lot of issues with the way that the medical care of the players was taken. So he didn't really know how to tackle that and how to tackle that with the board and how to tackle that with the medical team. The comment he said is this was the hardest 48 hours in my tenure here, and nobody's giving us support. Basically, the support is for the board, and the 48 hours is for the medical care that he was getting for some of his players. And I think the one name you can think of is Cole Palmer, right? Because Cole Palmer came back into training a month ago, but they did not let him. They said you can't play him because he needs to get back to fitness. But his take on it was no, I want him to start playing ASAP, right?
Yeah.
So it was a culmination of that, along with a few other things. I think if he had the chance, he would stay for longer. Managers are human beings; they're going to make comments regardless. I think all three of our clubs have managers who've made crazy comments in the past, so it's not like it's something new.
Yeah.
But this is definitely something that's been brewing for a while. I don't think they should have done it now. I think if you look at our next 27 days, right? We have 29 days left in Jan. We have 9 games. We have 9 games across 4 competitions. And like you're getting rid of the guy who was holding it all down, even if it was a draw or a loss. He was holding it down for the club. So how am I going to get through these 9 games is beyond me. It's going to be extremely difficult for us.
Is Iqbali going to take over?
He reminds me of remember in the FIFA World Cup when Nusret, the Solbay guy, went on the pitch to get the World Cup trophy. He reminds me of him, man. Because he doesn't do it. He doesn't feel like he does much. Like in the background and in the boardroom, I'm sure he does, but he feels like he's that one looming figure on the pitch that comes every single game. And I don't know what he's doing. Like there are rumors that after a few big results, he's gone into the dressing room and shouted at the players. I don't know if any of that is true. I don't have the evidence to back that up. But it sounds like something that these guys would do because they don't know how it would run. If it didn't happen, fine. But um, it's the feeling we're getting as fans, right? Because we don't know these people. We knew Abramovich was because he won our trust by investing in the club and saying the right things at the right time. He never put himself before the club. And when it came to the end of his tenure, he sold the club because he was like, the club shouldn't be associated with anything that's going on with me, right? So it's difficult for us fans to understand how this club is being run in the background. All we know is there's Bowley and the manager. So more than that is something that we have to just focus on the pitch.
Chris, you're forgetting the sporting directors. You guys have a plenty of sporting directors who just sign players, and Enzo just was given players like that. Lay low, make them play.
Yeah.
Because most of the decisions, like, it was, I think we spoke about it the last time also when we were discussing about Chelsea, Shiv, and we just don't understand just like, why have they bought certain players? For example,
How many
Garnacho.
wingers do you guys need?
You're
Garnacho,
forgetting. You're forgetting our number one winger, guys. It's
young Raheem.
yeah.
But Chris, before you go on, I have another question to you. Who is going to be the next manager right now? Because firstly, I don't see anybody out there in the managerial market where you can get into Chelsea. Number two, going just by the way Chelsea owners are acting, you kind of need a puppet just to be like, hey, listen, these are your tools. Work with this. Give me results. So,
Yeah.
who the hell do you think you guys will manage to sign in the next couple of days? Is that a candidate you're looking at?
So there were 3-4 candidates. I'll talk about the one I think is going to come last. The first two that they were really rumors were Marco Silva and Glasner. Marco
Okay.
Silva from
Fulham.
Fulham and Glasner from Crystal Palace. I don't think either would ever leave at this point in the season. I mean, it's happened in the past. Graham Potter left and joined us at a weird time in the season, so it would have been possible. But I don't think those are going to happen. I don't think a big name is going to join this season because they need to sign a manager on the next. I'm talking in the manner of days, not weeks. I think the next manager will join probably a day or two after the City game. But I think the leading candidate is a guy named Liam Rosenior. He is right now the Strasbourg manager. Strasbourg are playing in the Serie A. Sorry, Ligue 1. Sorry, my bad.
League One. French,
Ligue 1, yeah. So they're part of Blueco. So right there, this was the first club that Blueco have bought after acquiring Chelsea. I think they bought Strasbourg for like $75 million and bought 100% of the club. But I think Strasbourg are right now like sixth or seventh in the Ligue 1. And if you look at their first 11, I think 5 to 6 are either players who are on loan from Chelsea or sold from Chelsea. You have Chilwell, you have Mamadou Sarr, you have Diego Moreira, you have I forgot one or two other main names, but you have a lot of players who've either left Chelsea or on loan. Kendre Paz, another 17-year-old who's another big player. So you have a lot of players who are from Chelsea there. And they wanted to churn like a machine that, that even the City Football Group are doing, right? This is part of their try for global dominance of football for Blueco. So it seems like a logical choice because Liam Rosenier has bought into the idea of Blueco. He was brought on to Strasbourg by Clearlake Capital and Blueco as a manager to lead them. But it's such a uninspiring signing, right? It's like some it's I'm sorry, like I have to say it as a fan, like you think of the names available in the market today. You have Xavi, you have Zidane, you have a few people who you should fight for. Your Chelsea Football Club, you're one of the top 5, top 10 biggest clubs in football history. Forget the past 10 years. So I understand that they're trying to build the project, but if you didn't think Maresca was the right guy to build the project, is this guy really the right guy? I remember he was a player while we were watching. I remember watching this guy play for Fulham. Like, he used to play for Fulham a few years ago. Like, so this is a guy who played in the lower dredges of the Premier League. So, and he's now a manager, and I think he's most likely going to be the manager of our club. What that means, I have no idea. He's won 7 out of 17 games for Strasbourg. I don't know what the signing means, but see, like, I think the biggest for me when I look at a new manager, the first thing I think of is the other players going to respect him, right? Are the players going to give their all for this particular manager?
I think the players are probably thinking, who the fuck is that guy?
Oh my God.
They're going to do the same thing I did. They're going to go on Google and type Liam Rosenier and then read up about him. And some of them are going to be like, who the fuck is this guy? they're all going to do this. I promise you, Enzo Fernandez, who's the vice captain and pretty much the captain for most of the time, he's going to be like, who the hell is this guy? I'm way better than this guy ever was, and I have to report to him.
Yeah.
So, like, is he going to have the respect of the players? If you see the meme, there's a meme on Twitter. There's a meme that's saying that he looks like a 6th grade math teacher because he genuinely does. If you see a picture of Liam Rosenier with his vest, he wears this like bro vest that you see like people in finance bro wears, and then he wears glasses. He looks like he could be teaching calculus in class. So, like, this is the dude who's gonna be leading our team, and what's going to happen, how he's going to manage, I don't know. We're going to find out, guys.
Yeah, I think you guys are put in a strange position now because going by how your management has dealt with previous managers, whether it be Tuchel or whether it be Pochettino and now Maresca, I feel like even Nagelsmann in the summer, or not this summer, but last summer,
Yeah.
And even Enrique passed on probably the Chelsea job,
Yes,
but
he
it's
did.
all coming down to basically a ownership because nobody wants to be under owners who are going to treat them like this, right? Like they have to have more say in like transfers in terms of how things are going to play out on the pitch. So are you concerned that, okay, maybe Rosani is a short-term choice, but in the future, will you be able to attract a big name manager?
See, there's a few things to that, right? The sacking of managers is not something new, right? So I think Chelsea were the ones who were like the most known for it. It's been happening since Mourinho in 2004, 2005. I think we've had we've had more managers in most clubs, but we were competing for the title. Like I
Yeah.
remember very clearly after Maresca got sacked, I was looking back. Ancelotti got sacked in his second year after winning the Premier League and FA Cup the previous year and finishing second in the league the year he got sacked. So that was the level of success we had to achieve at the time. And see how far that's changed now because of the project, right? The project that they've tried to change now. I think that started in like 2017, 2018 when Lampard took over, and you saw players like Mount and Abraham and Tomori getting the chance over other established players. So the sacking of managers is not something new, I'd say, but the clear distinction now is there seems to be this overcast shadow of our ownership over the manager, saying you are the coach more than you are a manager. You have to deal with the in and out of the training and coaching and how we're going to win on the pitch. And we look at it from a scouting and transfer perspective, which I think is majority of what our fans believe. And it is pretty much, I'd say, what's happening. But to be fair to Boli, at least, he has included Maresca in a lot of conversations about transfers. And Maresca has had a lot of say in some of the players that they've brought in. So, uh, like Dewsbury Hall, for example, was a player that Maresca fought for more than anyone, and they got him. And looking back, Dewsbury Hall could be such a good player for us right now. So, but yeah, so I'd say the overlooming shadow is yes, our ownership tries to put their foot in the sense that they'll look at it from a financial and scouting perspective, and the manager has to show results on the pitch. But you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You can't buy 50 young players and give them to a manager and say if you don't win then you're out, because you need the right manager. You need to give them time. You need to give them more time. If you look at Arteta and Maresca's first 90 games, Maresca's win percentage is higher. I think it's like 62 to 58% or 57%. But Arsenal have given Arteta so much time, and look where they are now. Like their project is working, right? So we are the youngest team in the league by far. I think our average age is 23, but Arsenal's average age is 25. And they gave this guy time to build the team. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, that's, I think, the main thing that I as a fan, as somebody who's looked at this club for the past 15, 20 years, I'm not happy about. You can't expect to give players to a manager and say, go and achieve this. You have to give him time to get them together as a squad. I'm honestly seeing a bit of cohesion between the team now, right? So we don't have an established first 11, I'd say, because our back four fluctuates a lot and our front one or two fluctuates a lot. But our core midfield of, I'd say, Enzo, Caicedo, Palmer, and you have the left back and some of the wingers locked. You have to build your team around this, otherwise it's going to fall apart, like as it's done for Spurs, as it's done for so many other clubs over the past few years.
Yeah.
Also, going into obviously, let's go into the players now because I think I'm done with hearing Todd's name.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on just Cole Palmer's position? Obviously, like when Enzo was there, he kept playing him, started off left and then center and then right. But what do you think is his favorite position?
I think his favorite position is the number 10 position. When he first came into the club into just after Pochettino, right? He started playing on the right wing. I mean, that's where he started off playing. And then he evolved into the position that he is right now. And that's where he saw the most success, right? I think he can play off the right. He can play through the center. I don't see him ever as a false nine striker, and I never see him playing off the left. I think this is a guy who has so much talent and skill on the ball that he needs the time and vision on the right and the center to have that space. On the left, he's going to be drawn out to the wing and he might lose a lot of space. So for me, his optimal position is a number 10. Our biggest issue is we don't have a number 9. We don't have a number 9 to complement him. And I can talk about our striker position for a very long time. Like, I think our last good striker was Diego Costa. Like, and before Diego Costa was Didier Drogba. So if you look at, like, it's such a huge time difference in between those two strikers, right? Because we've bought so many players in the interim thinking that they're going to be the best in the future, but it's not turned out to be that.
But do you think Delap or Pedro are better than Nicholas Jackson?
So this is going to be, I mean, it's going to be controversial and going to be each fan's own perspective. I think Jackson is better than both of them. I think if you saw all the games as a Chelsea fan, right? Yes, João Pedro runs off the ball, he does a lot of work, but Jackson had that bit of spark that he just didn't give up. He didn't have the most goals, he didn't have the most assists, but he was a fighter on the ball and fighter off the ball as well. Like, I think he provided way more than what João Pedro is doing right now, because I don't see João Pedro as being a number 9 striker right now. Delap, I think he needs time. He's been bought in. He got an injury. He's not scored or assisted a goal in the Premier League yet.
2025,
That tells you all you need to know about his time right now at Chelsea. But we got him for, I think, a great price at 30 million, considering the market right now. He needs a lot of time. He needs that core manager and core group around him to make him better. So I think you need to give Delap the time. I mean, we're forgetting Guiu. Guiu, I mean, is an outlier. Whenever you see him play, you think he's good, but then he doesn't do enough off the ball for 60 minutes, and then has a crazy flash of brilliance on the ball for like 5 seconds, right? So our striker position right now is in shambles, man. I mean, it's pure shambles. It's our worst position by far. If we had a number 9 like Haaland, or I mean, Haaland is like obviously the utopia, but even like a Watkins or a like
or an Ekitike. I know.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
we'll get to your strikers, Karan. Don't worry, man. But if we had that player that was a spark and was that experience, but we don't have that right now, and that's why we're so heavily reliant on our wingers and Palmer, and even Caicedo. Caicedo scored more goals than most of our strikers. So like it's really sad. Like, it's gonna take a lot of change to get the right players into our team.
But to wrap up our little Chelsea bit, I mean, this, like you said, the sacking or mutual parting of ways couldn't have come at a worse time for you guys. But on the bright side, you're still in all 4 competitions. You're in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup, still in the Champions League. So what do you think is, like, considering what has just happened, what do you think is like a realistic expectation for Chelsea this season? In terms of the league, where do you think you'll be happy with? And do you want a trophy? Like, what's an acceptable finish for you?
Yeah. So we'll go down each competition quickly. So Carabao Cup, we're in the semi-finals. I think we're playing Arsenal over 2 legs. I think we have a chance there. Carabao Cup, as most pundits would say, don't treat that as a league game. Anything can happen in cup games, and I think we'll be putting a lot of effort into that. And that's towards later in the month, so I think we have time. And I think a lot of fans are going to be pulling out hope that we come out in that competition at least. FA Cup, it's still too early. We're playing Charlton in the next round, so there's still a lot of time. Champions League, we have 2 games left. I think we should most definitely reach the groups, the quarterfinals, or at least the round of 16, right? So that's something that we should be positive about. And then coming to the league, I think a realistic finish for us would be 5th or 6th. Yeah, I was going to say 5th or 6th. I think we should be good enough to reach the top 5 or top 6. But like when we finished end of November, people thought we were going to compete for the title, and now we're sitting in 4th. But if you see the league, right, 4th place to 13th place is 4 points.
Yeah.
So it's really crazy. It's almost like the championship. Like, the championship is the most dogfight league in the world, and then now you have that in the Premier League as well. So if we finish 5th or 6th, I think it's a good end for a crazy season for us right now.
Yeah. I think we've noticed that this season is just a league of inconsistency. Each team giving the other a chance to sort of go ahead, but nobody's taking the chance, whether it's Liverpool, United, Chelsea, Palace, Bournemouth. I mean,
Yeah,
the list of teams is endless. But moving
yeah.
from Stamford Bridge to Liverpool, sir, what happened? This
let's
was supposed to be
let's
an easy
change.
game for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
We're talking about strikers, no? Ekiteke, Isaac, the two best strikers in the world. Let's go,
listen.
man.
Okay, so yeah, if you guys watched that game, that was a fucking shit show of a game. Absolute snooze fest. I see. I think Shiv, I've told you this. I've been slot out for a while now, and I just don't understand what he's doing. Like there was a point where he removed Kirkes, he removed Wirtz, who was obviously horrendous. I think he was carrying a hamstring injury, so he had to remove
Stop
him.
defending him. My God, you shameless man.
And
How
then
much will you
and
defend him?
then and then he gets in Chiesa, and then he gets in Rio, and then he gets in McAllister. So I don't understand these changes. So if you're getting in Cody Gakpo, okay, Cody Gakpo was playing through the left. After 10 minutes, Cody Gakpo goes on the right, Rio goes to left. Where is Chiesa? After 2 minutes, we change the formation completely. We play 4-4-2, Chiesa right, Rio left, Ekitike and Gakpo in the middle. What the fuck is going on? Why is there no just a certain amount of pattern in play where, okay, listen, we are doing something in training? It just looked like Leeds literally didn't even play Calvert-Lewin, who scored 6 or 7 in 7, and they literally played their second fiddle starting lineup and they just cruised through. We didn't have a single chance. It was so boring to watch. Like, it was so fucking boring.
I
And
think Ekitike had one chance we should have probably buried, but
but
I think he headed that wide.
but
And
from
Van Dijk won from the corner. That's about it.
that's about it. And there was another chance with Wirtz where Wirtz had like a chance where Ekitike should have fallen. Like, that's a clear penalty if he had fallen, but he didn't fall, which is fair. Which I like players who are true to the game and don't fucking fall if they haven't gotten hurt, right? And he gives that pass to Wirtz, and Wirtz hits the shot, and James Justin, who was on the ground at least 25 times yesterday, was again on the ground. this time blocking. But yeah, overall, I don't know how long this strain will go on, because I think this could be potentially one of the worst run of form for Liverpool, and we haven't lost in 8 games or 9 games, but we just look so bad. Like, how has he gone and said Salah is the issue after watching us? Or after, imagine I'm the manager of Liverpool. I go into the training ground, I go watch videos of the game, and I'm like, hey, Salah is the reason that we're playing bad. Like,
Hmm.
it's just beyond me. It's, I can go
He's
on, man.
finding a scapegoat always.
Always,
Y-
right? And yesterday, without Salah, it was so poor. Imagine, this is the weirdest thing about yesterday's game. We played Connor Bradley at right back. We played Frimpong at right wing, who is supposed to be the two right backs for Liverpool, right? Guess who finished the game at right back?
I can't remember who.
Szoboszlai. Please, okay,
He-
explain it to me. Explain it to me. What the fuck is going on in Slot's mind?
It's like on FIFA, you know, you go and shuffle formation. He's just pressing shuffle, shuffle, shuffle.
It's
No, but
mad.
Karak, I have a question for you. Okay, at the start of the season, you see the signings that Liverpool made, right?
Mm,
You were like, okay, we're coming off a title-winning season by signing like some of the best players in the
mm.
world in each position. Did you at any point think, oh no, like some of these players are going to take a long time to fit in, and we're meddling with the system that was established and won? Or did you actually think, okay, we're adding a lot of world-class talent and they will gel together?
See, I think I thought we'd win the quadruple because I think Florian Wirtz in the Bundesliga was sensational. I'd give him some time. He's 22 years old, and then we all know about Isak. But then when Isak came on, it literally looked like he stopped playing football. Like, it just looked like he couldn't pass the ball. He couldn't even go past the player. It was so bad. And then I think what I didn't think of is that center mid, man. I think we keep talking about Gravenberg. We keep talking about the number 6 position. And we were so heavily reliant on him last season because he was obviously a breakthrough talent for us playing that
Yeah.
number 6 role. But then, dude, in this footballing world, like, you can get found out easily. And teams have found a way to play against Gravenberg because it's so simple. You just mark Gravenberg, you put 2 guys on him, you have just removed him because he doesn't have that impact which he usually had last season, right? And
Yeah.
you can't expect Gravenberg to play 50 games or 55 games. The only issue I feel, the question you asked me was obviously the new signings. We've sold a lot of players.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought it might affect us, but I didn't know it'll affect us to this aspect where we're like, dude, I'm so pissed off with Slot. And I understand that we've signed these new players, but there has to be some sort of responsibility from the manager to get them to play. And I don't see that at all. Only
Yeah.
because if you look at Cody Gakpo, for example, what are your thoughts on Cody Gakpo? We all know what he's going to do. Gets the ball, cuts right, game over.
Yeah.
He's not going to pass
Yeah.
the ball to anybody. But you want to keep playing him, okay?
Yeah.
And then you have Mo Salah, who has been average, but he still has more goals than majority of our players. So I just don't understand where it all went wrong. But again, it just feels like Slot he doesn't know what he's doing. I don't want to bring in Jota yet. I don't want to give that as a reason with respect to just say mentality, just say psychologically players, because Jota was a big presence in that dressing room. But
And even Luis
just-
Diaz, right?
even Luis Diaz, right, on the left wing,
Yeah.
I was under the impression that, okay, listen, we're getting 68 million for a 29-year-old. I thought like Todd Bowley for a second. I said, oh, great signing. Send him. But then what a huge miss, right, on the left wing, because we don't have. Okay, tell me one player in our team who can take a man on other than Ekitike. Just think about it.
Salah could, but he's lost
Salah
all that.
could. Salah could. But there's
No, see,
nobody.
I think Isak can. I've seen him play off the wing even for Newcastle. I've seen him play off the wing for you
Sweden.
guys. I mean, it's for Sweden as well. But he's just not got a season going. I mean, I don't know what it's come down to. You've got when you guys signed Frimpong, I thought he was a genius signing. When you guys got Xerxes, not Xerxes, sorry,
Ekitike.
Kirkez. Kirkez was the name I was thinking of. That was the one I had a lot of questions about because Robbo was fading a bit, but he's established himself in the team. It's not just the up and coming talent, right? It's the ones who are experienced in the league, and it takes a lot to get Robbo out of the team, right? So it takes time for players to gel. And you guys are still fourth in the league, right? You still have a lot of time. You have good games coming up, but you guys are facing the same thing we are, right? You're taking something that was established and trying to not build a new project, but trying to inject as much talent as you can into the squad and coming from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. I think we've seen with enough players now, it's a different animal. When Werner came, he was Werner the burner. He was going to be like, I genuinely thought he was going to be a huge player for us. When Pulisic came, I thought Pulisic was going to be a huge player for us, but we've all seen what that's come to. So definitely a lot of question marks, I think, regarding the chemistry in your team, not regarding the talent. I think you guys definitely still have the best team in the league for sure.
No, obviously, when you talk about the Bundesliga, also, come on, we're talking about Florian Wirtz here, who, according to the guys in Germany, is the next best thing out of Germany. So he's not like he's not like someone who's a one-season wonder is coming to Liverpool, right? He's played in that Bayern Leverkusen team, which didn't lose a single game. So if we're talking about players who've had pedigree in their own league and coming into the Premier League. But come on, man, like if you watch Wirtz play, sometimes it just looks like it just doesn't look like he has that skin in the game like how we used to play for Leverkusen. Is it the physicality? Is it the weather? Is it just the surrounding at the moment? Who knows? But I just expected a lot more from Isak and Wirtz. But yeah, man, it's sorry times right now for Liverpool. Even though we are on this unbeaten run, it just doesn't look good. Even yesterday in the game, the atmosphere was poor. Fans were bored out of their skull because listen, we're playing Leeds. Who are Leeds? They just got back from the championship.
They beat us 3-1. I'll say that.
They beat us 3-1 at home.
They're actually on a pretty good run of form, though. I don't think they've lost in the last 5 or 6 games.
But under Klopp, we used to dismantle them 6-1, 6-0.
Yeah.
This used to be a no-brainer. Like if Liverpool play Leeds at home, I'll be captaining Salah or Ekitike or Wirtz, okay?
Yeah.
That's what I'll do in my FPL. Bro, yesterday, it looked like we didn't come there to play. It looked like we came there to just pass the ball and hope Just say Inshallah, koi marega piche se. It was so fucking irritating. I was so pissed off. I was watching the game. I was like, listen, man, listen. But yeah, I'm slot out.
But I
Yeah,
will say one thing about Wirtz for you. There was a young man who came to Chelsea in 2013. He goes by the name of Eden Hazard. His first year, he was not that great. He was quite average. And I think he did quite well after his first season. So I think Wirtz is another player, as you said, right? He needs time to develop in the team. He needs the right guys to go alongside him. But the quality is there, man. I mean, if you give him the time and the right headspace, I think you're right. It's a mixture of surroundings. I don't know about weather, but maybe the city he's in, the players around him. It's a very physical, fast-paced game. So I still think Wirtz can be a top-class player.
Same. I've asked Shiv. I think Shiv knows my
yeah,
love for
I think he defends Wirtz a lot, far more than Wirtz deserves. I think, although in the last few weeks he has been better, he was poor against Leeds. But yeah, I think Karak will be hoping that Wirtz can be even 10% of what Hazard was. Maybe he'll come to that with a new manager and some new ideas next year. But right now, none of that class has been shown.
You know what, Shiv? I think we should stop talking about Liverpool and we need to go to
Yes.
Please, can we
United.
not?
Yes.
Because
Can we not?
I have a question for you, Shiv. How on earth is Amarim still the manager at United?
Oh man. Bro, I'm
Ruben Amorim.
I'm honestly shocked that Amarim has survived longer than Maresca. But it's just that United fans have this, and me included, have this strange amount of patience because it's gone wrong with so many managers now. And we're just tired of, going through another cycle of transition. And honestly, over the past few weeks, besides the Wolves game, he was gaining some sort of support again from the fans, because even though we didn't win the Bournemouth game, but we showed signs of really playing well. The Villa game, we played well, of course, didn't get the result, but they were better performances. And he also showed signs of, changing the system. He was playing 4 at the back. He's played a 4-3-3. He's played a 4-2-3-1. He's played a 4-4-1-1. So, fans were impressed. Like that stubborn coach who was only playing the 3-4-3 was able to adapt and do something different. And even if you drop points like that, it's still okay because we can see that, you're unlucky or something. But like in the Bournemouth game, he played really well. But this Wolves game was it's up there with Grimsby and Everton, like just an awful, awful performance. And I know we have players missing, but it is inexcusable. I'm sorry. That is a team that has 2 points in the league. They are they are the worst team in Premier League history. Like, period.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has 3 points now, but 2 points after 19 games, right? So that result was honestly inexcusable. And he did it to himself. Like you saw that in the Newcastle game, he started with 4-2-3-1 and we were so good in the first half. And then the second half, he goes back to his 3-4-3 and we're struggling and Newcastle have 85% of the ball. Even in this game, Dogu was so good in the Newcastle game and in that right wing position. Again, he goes back, puts him back, left wing back, Darlow right wing back. And he was asked in the press conference after why he went back to the 3-4-3. And he's like, he wanted to adapt to Wolves. What the fuck? They're last. They're bullshit. The worst team in the league, bro. What's he doing?
He gave him as much respect as anyone should.
Wolves team respect, man.
Honestly,
it was a
the guy who
shocking
scored the
comment.
goal for I don't even know how to pronounce his name, man.
Bro, who's on that Wolves team,
Nice
bro?
name.
I don't know any of these people. And just some of the substitutions also, like he took off Xerxes after he scored. Look, Xerxes wasn't phenomenal or anything, but he's just scored a goal. Like I'm sure some sort of confidence will come from that. You can't just take him off at halftime. And then it's 1-1. We're trying to win the game here. It's
Centre
Wolves.
back.
He makes the substitution of Lenny Yoro for Aiden Heaven. I'm fucking on drugs. We're trying to win the game here, buddy.
Bro,
What are you doing?
Shiv, can you please explain his obsession? Always, I think throughout his tenure so far, just why does he substitute the centre back every fucking time?
No, I don't understand it. I'm in the same boat as you. And this, I would understand it, okay, if some player is injured and you're trying to protect him. Aiden Heaven has no injury. We are not winning the game. It's like, okay, maybe you're protecting a lead, some defender is tired. Okay, I'll give you some justice. But in a game, when you're trying to win, you'll change the system, you'll change your formation, move players around. He just makes like for like substitutions. How is that going to win you the game? We had Shea Lacey on the bench, who's an academy product and supposed to be one of the brightest young stars. Doesn't bring him on. Why not? Take a chance. The two players that he brought on, Jack Fletcher, which was for Xerxes. I mean, he's not a match winner yet. He's
Is
playing
he-
in the midfield.
Are you talking about the Nepo baby, Jack Fletcher? I call him
Yeah,
Nepo
Nepo.
baby.
Well, yeah, he is Nepo baby, but of course, right now we have a lot of injuries, so don't have options.
Yeah.
So that's why he's come on. And even
Yeah.
Montanto, unfortunately, it was his first ever game, didn't have the greatest of showing, but it's okay. I'm not going to blame a young kid who's come from the academy, but just show some more balls, man. Like, you're playing Wolves, bro. Come on. Take a chance. And I refuse to accept this injuries argument. Yes, we do have a lot of players out, but you're telling me that team cannot beat Wolves? I'm sorry. That is an inexcusable result. And I thought Cunha had a really, really poor game. It's someone like in a game where we have a lot of players missing, I expected someone like him to step up. But unfortunately, he was poor. I thought Sesko was decent, didn't take his chances, unfortunately. And that's just been the story of the season for him. Like, he gets in good positions, his running off the ball is great, but just not taking his chances. I think he had a good header, which he shot straight at the keeper. Then another shot towards the end, which then Dogu gets the rebound off, but was offside. So yeah, I mean, it's just a really, really bad result. And I remember you asked me before this game week, like, we have Wolves, Leeds, and Burnley coming up, and we should be taking 9 points.
Tough games, man. Tough games.
We should
Very
be
tough.
getting 9 points. And the easiest game of the lot, we have already dropped points. So,
You know, my favorite
it's-
thing is I see a lot of these United games at like 1 or 2 a.m. and Shiv has to stay up for all of them. He has to stay up just to see his team draw or lose.
It's horrible, man. They give us these fixtures, and like I'm already falling asleep, and then you watch that Wolves game, and like my eyes are bleeding, bro. They're bleeding.
I'll show you.
What am I watching?
Chris, I'll show you how he was feeling after the Wolves game. Give me a second. Just give me 1 second.
Oh God, I don't know what you're going to show me.
So I'm going to summarize us in 3 words. We are shit.
Bro, I'm tired at that time.
Bro. When I saw that video, bro, I've lost my mind. I was like, listen,
Bro,
Oh,
I'm
dude.
telling you, it's 3:45 in the
Yo,
morning. Okay,
Guys,
that
I'll say
team
this
is-
now. You guys have the potential to become the new Arsenal fan TV. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. As long as
Bro.
United keep losing games and as long as Shiv has these meltdowns, me and Karak will always be happy. And there'll be people who hate United who will come to the channel just to see you break down, Shiv. And we're all here. We're for it. We're for it. We hope we provide an outlet for you, man.
Bro, it's an endless breakdown, bro. But that's the frustrating part, because every week we're given a chance. And also, this is just not just us, this is you guys also. Every
Oh, yeah.
week, teams are dropping points left, right, and center, and no one team has come forward and said, okay, I'm going to take charge and, create some sort of gap. All our teams just draw, lose, draw, lose. Yesterday, there were 3 draws, 4 draws yesterday, 3 of them nil-nil draws. Like, nobody wants to take charge, so that's what's frustrating. And like, this run of fixtures for us was like a no-brainer. You're supposed to take charge here and, sort of establish yourselves. We could have been 4th right now, but instead
yeah.
we're 6th. And I think he's genuinely in the job because the entire league is so inconsistent, and that 6th place is keeping him in
Yeah.
the job because it doesn't paint the picture of how bad we actually are. That's just the sorry state
I'm waiting
of
for the
affairs.
meme when you do your end of the game result video and you say it's time to go.
No, and we've been so patient, and I'm not hammering him out yet, but the patience is waning very, very thin now. Like, it's just getting to a
Yeah.
point, like, we need, like, he's self-sabotaging, right? You've seen your team play better in that 4-2-3-1, 4-4-1-1 system, but you still go back to this.
Yeah.
So, and now we have Leeds, which is definitely not an easy game. Leeds away, of course, big rivalry. Those fans will be up for it. And
Calvert-Lewin on the
honestly-
biggest run of his life.
exactly. And Of course, we have a lot of injuries. I can't see us winning that game at all. At best, we get a draw.
But also, Shiv, I think when I was watching that Wolves game, dude, Ugarte and Casemiro in that middle. How do you?
Ugarte.
How,
I'm going to
bro?
clap for Ugarte, guys. Ugarte is the best side. I will say this. He's winning off the pitch, guys. I told Shiv this. He's winning off the pitch. I don't know what he's doing on the pitch, but off the pitch, I'm happy for him,
Yeah.
man.
But yeah,
Man.
I mean that Ugarte Casemiro is just that's an injury problem which I can't like do anything because we have Menu out, we have Bruno out, we have so many players on AFCON and like Ahmad is out. So that his hand is forced. He doesn't have an option. It's either you play them or you play Jack Fletcher and kids from the academy. Regardless of who you play against Wolves, if you don't win that game, it is
Yeah.
shameless. And that performance and that result was shameless.
Agreed.
Nothing
You
more.
brought up his name. What is your United fans? Maybe you've already spoken about this, but your take on Mainu and what the
No, I mean
situation is.
it's really unfortunate that he's injured now, or at least that's what everyone is. At least that's what the club has put out. Because when Amarim has clearly stated that it's either Bruno or Menu. That's why Menu hasn't got his minutes, and it's unfortunate that when Bruno got injured, Menu also got injured, so he hasn't got his minutes. Bro, I would be begging to see Menu right now, especially after that last performance. There was no fluidity, no creativity. Menu will add that to our team in
No
a situation
passion.
like this.
No,
No passion,
aggression.
no aggression, nothing, bro. It's just shameless. So I'd love to have Main in the team, but he's injured. And I just watched the press conference also. None of the players are back. Mount is also not back for Sunday. So it's pretty much going to be the same 11.
Same
That's
11.
all. Pretty
Oh,
much, I
oh.
can't see anything. I think maybe Shea Lacey will play, but that's about it. So
No,
I
then-
don't have any high expectations. I would probably predict 2-1 Leeds win.
Keeping
I-
expectations low.
No, I just that's just an honest prediction. I can't see us winning that game with the team we have
Yeah.
and how we played against Wolves. Like, how in my right mind can I say we're going to go and get 3 points?
Bro,
I'd be
you're saying
fucking
2-1
high,
against
bro.
Leeds. Imagine us against City, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
But going to that, what is your prediction for that Chelsea
Oh my
City
God.
game?
You know I was like, okay, Maresca's gone. Willie will be there in the caretaker position for a few days. Sanchez put up a post saying thank you, Willie, as well. So I guess he's out as well. So who the hell is on our side? Like, will they fly me there? Can I stay on the side? Because clearly it's not going to matter, right? Guys, I mean, it's going to be, I feel like anything less than a bloodbath is a win for me. So I'll like 3-0, 3-1. If that happens, I'll be very happy. I mean, we don't even have Caicedo. So
Yeah.
Cucurella's back at least. We have one positive, but we don't have a good striker. Palmer's not back fully fit in terms of his performances. No Caicedo. Andre Santos is not up to par for the Premier League, in my opinion, yet. So I hope it's not a bloodbath. I hope the team come out, say that, okay, you've got rid of our manager, but we're going to show you how good we are as a team and at least hold it to a 2-1 or a 3-1. But
Is this game at the Bridge or at Etihad?
At Etihad,
pretty
Oh,
hard.
at Etihad. Okay.
That's why I'm saying bloodbath.
5-0.
Right.
If it's anything better than that, I'll be really happy and consider that a good sign for us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see you guys picking up any points either. But what about you, Karak? Fulham, you're playing Fulham, right? Fulham away, I think.
Fulham away. Just going by how we are playing away from home, kind of playing. Actually, we play better away from home at the moment. But again, I think it'll be a 1-0 or a 2-0, 2-1 victory for Liverpool. But again, I don't know which Liverpool will come out because if it's going to be the same Liverpool against Leeds, then it's going to be a 0-0 draw.
Wow, this is some
Yeah.
really depressing chat. No,
So-
none of us have predicted
We're
our
supporting
teams
our
to
clubs,
win.
guys. We're supporting our clubs.
Of course.
No, but I have a question for both of you. Who do you think has been the biggest surprise package in terms of a team or a player this season
Who
for you?
else? Sunderland, like without a shadow
Yeah.
of a doubt. And
Okay.
Granit Xhaka, incredible.
Especially Sunderland at home, I think they've picked
Oof.
up some massive results. They've made that ground sort of a fortress. They won the derby. They've beaten some pretty big teams this season. So yeah, Sunderland is probably
They drew to Arsenal, they drew to
Yeah.
City, and yesterday against City, they had the game. You know, in the first half, they had like some solid chances, 3-4 chances, and obviously Donnarumma made some 4 saves. But I thought they were sensational yesterday, and credit, man. Like, you
Yeah.
know, they signed like 11 players, and we were shitting on them Shiv, in the first episode saying who all they've signed. but he's done a fantastic job. And the way they play, that's what I want a team. Like, if you talk about philosophy and if it by bringing in like 11, 12 players, that's how I'd like my team to play. And with
And
that
it's also,
passion,
grit and determination, right? Which a lot of other teams are lacking right now.
these are not like,
They're
and also
playing like they want to stay in the
Yeah.
Premier League. So,
and forget that. It's just that, these are not like players who are unbelievable, right? These are just players who work so well
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that system. And the only way you can work well in any system is when you put in the hard work. And you can just see from the outside when you're watching Sunderland play, man, those fuckers run, huh? They just
Yeah.
keep running, they keep defending. And bro, Granit Xhaka in the middle as a captain, he's been such a breeze to watch, man. So happy.
yeah,
I actually have
agree.
I have a hot take of who my surprise package is. It's for me, it's been Brentford. Um,
Yeah.
Brentford are a team who've lost Thomas Frank, their manager. They've lost their striker in Visa. They've lost Tony, obviously. They've lost
Mbeumo.
Mbeumo. They've lost their captain in Norgard. So 5 massive players and managers that they've lost, and they're in their 9th place. They're in the top 10, and they're doing quite well. I mean, for a team they're so cohesive as a team. They're obviously not going to be challenging for the top 5, top 6 this season, but I'm very, very surprised as to how well they've done given the talent and the manager that they've lost. So it's quite cool to see that the Premier League has evolved into something that's way beyond the top 4 or top 6 that we grew up watching, right? So people who are starting to watch the Premier League now and not bandwagoners might start supporting a Sunderland or a Brentford or a Brighton. So
Or a
it's
Chelsea. Sorry.
guys, I'll don't. Do we really? I don't want to promote that right now. Give us a year or two.
But coming to, since you said top 5, top 6, I think we can do one last round of predictions since we've pretty much reached the halfway point of the season. I think Karak, me and you had discussed City winning the league. I think we both said no. We both said Liverpool
listen,
win the league. Sorry. We both said Liverpool will win the league. But I think we got to revise those predictions
Yeah,
now.
you guys have to revise that though.
Yeah. So, Mr. Javeri, first to you, if you'd give us your
Okay.
top 6, how do you think that's going to finish?
This is the most painful thing I've had to say in my life, and I'm 31 years old, so I've said a lot of
Don't-
things in my life.
Don't say that. Don't say it. Krish, no.
Oh,
no.
I don't know how I can say it. This is like the most painful thing, and I've told people I don't love them. I told them I want to break up with you. I don't. I like, or I've got broken up with. This is more painful than that, guys. In first place, I think will be that team in London, in the north. They wear red. They go by Gunners. I'm not going to even say the name because screw it. So they're going to be in first place. Second place, I think City will be in second. Their runner form is good now, and I think they're going to strengthen the squad with Semenyo. So I think it's going to be a tough team to beat. For me, third place, I think will be Liverpool. I think Liverpool will fight back. I think they have too good a squad not to come into the top 3 or top 4, guys. I mean, you as a fan are really putting them under the limelight, but from an outside perspective, see them as someone in the top 3 for sure. Fourth place, I said fifth in the start of the season, but screw it. I'm going to say Chelsea finishing in the top 4. Because fuck, if I don't say fourth, what am I as a fan? How am I going to watch the rest of the season if I don't believe in them now? Fuck it, Liam Rossignol for the win. He's going to come in and he's going to get them to the fourth place. Fifth place, I think Villa will come in fifth. They're doing really well. Obviously, the last result was not good, but Villa in fifth. And this is a bit of a hot take for the fan here, but I think United in sixth.
Yeah, fair. Think
Fair.
little optimistic, but fair.
Mhm.
Karak, what about you?
Mine's the same. I think I'd do Arsenal. So
same?
I'll do City first. Pep Guardiola. No one knows about the January run like me. So Pep
Yeah.
is gonna go. He's gonna win 20, 15 games. He'll win in a row, and then they'll obviously Arsenal. You know when they're gonna choke. You know it. You know it's gonna come, and when it comes, I'll be there. I'll be there. So
I'll be very
City-
happy. I'll be very happy.
City 1, Arsenal 2, Liverpool 3, Villa 4th, Chelsea 5th, and I'm going to say Sunderland 6th.
Fuck
Ooh.
off.
Ooh, you think? Wait. You think Sunderland will come back from the break and they'll keep it going?
I think they will. I think they have 6 players off in the AFCON. So if when they
Yeah.
come back, you never know, man. If they just push for it, bro, you never know. It can work out. That's a hot take again. I genuinely, again with United, I just feel like if they don't win the next 3 games with the run of fixtures they have, I think they're fucked.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I can't argue with any of that, but I think I also think City will push Arsenal and probably make them choke again. So I'm going to go City first, Arsenal second, Villa third, Liverpool fourth, United fifth.
Kadak, this is every United fan since we were kids.
Bro.
Well, I mean, like you said, Chris, like you said, if you don't believe in your team, what's the point, right? So I'm just
But
doing the
you
same
believing
thing.
in your team is them finishing 6th, bro.
Bro, we have the same points as you. So
Yeah.
we are pretty much the same team, boys. And we have. I'm going to go by the fact that okay, once our players back, we are a better team. So I'm just
Yeah.
hanging on that. Then when Mbumo, Ahmad, Bruno, Mount are all back, we are a stronger team. So, and we have 1 game a week. I'm holding on to that. So I think maybe that'll get us to 5th, and then yeah, Chelsea 6th. So I think that's
take
my
it.
top 6.
I'll
So
take it.
I mean, the way our first round of predictions went, we can't. It's tough to say that these will also come, right? But I think that's been episode 20 of the Clutch Report. Anything you boys want to add?
Blue is the color, football is the game. We're
right, all
all
right.
together.
I think that's a good time to wrap it up.
And
Thanks,
coming 6th is our aim.
But thanks, Krish, for coming on the pod. It was lovely
Thank
having
you,
you on to
boys.
discuss
Happy New Year
Maresca
to
and
you and to
Chelsea.
everyone.
Yes, Happy New Year to all of you guys. We're still trying to get to that 100 subscriber mark. So please like, share, subscribe, and we will catch you in the next one.